we're still waiting for this Iranian strike, and something that I'm sure you've heard as well from many analysts is saying that perhaps one of the reasons that it's taken a little bit longer, I know a lot of people were predicting that would have happened already by now, is
Right.
that Russia is currently in Tehran setting up air defense systems because Iran is knows that as soon as they strike, Israel is going to try to unleash hell on Iran and southern Lebanon. We'll see what they do exactly, but we can expect a pretty quick retaliation from Israel. And
Hmm.
so Russia is just putting in their air defense systems. But one of the things that I think is very interesting is their electronic warfare systems that have been very effective at disabling a lot of U.S. and therefore Israeli weaponry. Maybe
Hmm.
you can tell, do you know anything about these electronic warfare systems, defense systems that Israel, that Russia
Yeah.
has and is supplying to you
Yeah.
to
I don't.
Iran?
Yeah.
What are
Right.
they capable of, and what can
Right.
we expect?
Right. Well, there's something that apparently they delivered to them that's has an extraordinary range. I don't really know the details of it. I beg forgiveness, listeners. I'm traveling here in Moscow and going out on the city a lot and eating in a lot of restaurants, so I haven't kept up with all the details. But I know that they have um, this system that is able to actually can has a range of something like 2,500 kilometers, at least that. It may be even longer. I mean, I didn't know that there was any electronic warfare system capable of that kind of range, but this can, reach well to Israel and beyond. Um, Now, I imagine that these systems are quite complex, and it's not something that you can just kind of uh, pull out of the box and put into operation immediately. I imagine it takes some time, and I'm sure that it takes a lot of training to operate them. So, um, not only do they need time to set it up, but they're going to be missions that are going to be operating these systems if indeed these rumors are true, and I believe they are. It seems to be they're coming from a lot of sources. The Russian government hasn't actually announced it, but plenty of sources that are in the know with connections to the Russian military are saying that this is what's happening.
Are you able to tell us the capabilities of the system? Would they? I know that they basically render certain missiles like HIMARS or smart artillery shells like the Excalibur shells, render them worthless. They scramble their GPS
Right,
systems. Does it have
right.
any effect on fighters? Because this is what Israel will be using. Will be using F-35s, F-16s. Um, do you know if they have any capability
Yeah,
on scrambling those, or are they scrambling just missiles? How does it work?
yeah, right.
Like, will they have
Yeah,
trouble getting off the ground? Because he said
yeah,
the system can reach all the way to Israel itself.
yeah. I don't know exactly what it can do. I'll admit that, right up. It's now, of course, in Ukraine, Um, they've neutralized the HIMARS. They've neutralized the small diameter glide bombs. They've neutralized the ATACMS. It's funny. You just don't. I remember when the HIMARS first came out. You heard a lot about it, and they did a fair amount of damage. And then you just stopped hearing about them. And then I think the small diameter glide bomb never did anything. There was a. It was hyped up before it was shipped there, but it never accomplished anything. And the ATACMS, when they first came, they did some damage, just a few months ago, and now you don't hear about them because they're neutralized. So anyway, they have a proven track record. Now, the thing is that in each of those cases, they actually had to have some experience um, with the weapon, right? It's just that they had to discover, I guess, identify. Um, Characterize the weapon in a certain way and train their own systems um, to neutralize them. So I don't know what this is going to be able. They won't have time to do that, right? They're not going to have time to train their weapons and their personnel to deal with these systems. But maybe they feel confident they know about whatever it is, the Tomahawk cruise missiles or something. They maybe they have enough information on those so they feel they can neutralize them right now without any training period. I really can't say.
Right. Well, in a way, Iran will have a little bit of a leg up because thanks to the United States and our involvement in Ukraine, Russia has had a lot of training data already based on some of U.S. weaponry, which I'm sure there will be some overlap when carrying over to
I would
this
think so. Yeah.
Israel-Iran conflict that's incoming. Um,
Right.
and so, and not just with that, but just overall data. We've talked about
Right.
sort of this conflict in Ukraine. The U.S. military-industrial complex was kind of touting it as, oh, will be a weapon laboratory for us. But what we've seen is that it's been a weapon laboratory for Russia, not so much the United States. The United States has made few changes or evolved to adapt to the
Right.
situation, whereas we've seen a lot of innovation on the Russian side to adapt to whatever offensive weaponry that the U.S. and NATO was providing to Ukraine. So they, I'm sure Iran is getting all the help is very grateful for the help they're getting from Russia, and it's going to be a huge assistance, I
I would
believe,
think
in their
so. Yeah.
ability to defend against
Right.
any
Right.
offensive capabilities.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we've seen how effective they've done in Ukraine, and so we should expect it's not going to be the same thing, obviously, but there will be some similarities. So if Russia was very effective at neutralizing Western offensive capabilities in Ukraine, if Russia's heavily involved in Iran, we can expect them to be fairly effective at limiting these types
Right.
of
Right. Yeah.
offensive
Right.
capabilities
I
that
think, like
Israel
you
and the
say,
U.S.
there's
may
got to be
throw
a certain
here.
amount of
Um,
overlap. The ATACMS is a ballistic missile. Um, yeah, but they have learned to neutralize cruise missiles such as the Scalp and the Storm Shadow. Um, yeah, again, initially those did some damage, and then again, you just don't hear about it. I think also they're running out of them. That's another thing. But they've learned a lot, and I'm sure that those lessons that they've learned there can be applied to whatever, um, whatever missiles, whatever systems that the U.S. has in the Middle East region.
right. And like you said, Russian personnel will be on the ground helping to operate these systems, much
I think
like
they would
how
have to
U.S.
be. Yeah,
personnel is on the
right,
ground in Ukraine helping.
right.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
don't
think
think
without a doubt. Like you said,
yeah,
this isn't something that even when I get a bought piece of furniture, it takes me a while to go through the instructions and figure out how to put it together. Imagine something as
right,
complex as a
right,
electronic
exactly.
warfare system that can direct whatever it is thousands of
Yeah,
kilometers away to scramble GPS
right,
systems or whatever. There's no way. Obviously, they're going to be
right,
very trained technicians there that are going to be operating these things,
right,
which just goes to show that we are pulling into just a larger conflict. This is not Iran by itself. It is being supported by Russia, and then to some extent by China.
right.
Basically, these countries, if Iran, it's going to be kind of a proxy war. They will be bolstering them, maybe a bit more akin to the old school Cold War type of proxy wars. But the idea that Iran is going to lose is Russia and China won't allow that to happen. So anybody thinking that needs to really think about this a little bit more closely.